Hello and welcome back to World of Tanks Bootcamp with Zethika. And now in this episode I'm going to be showing you a replay with the object 268, and I'm going to be talking primarily about realizing when a flank is won, when a flank is lost, and when you're safe to go back and defend your base. These are very important concepts, since in a lot of cases your team are not going to be well coordinated and are going to rush one side while leaving another side very weak. That's something we see a lot of times, and it's something I refer to myself as so-called clockwork games, where you have this entire team here moving all the way around here because there's no one really around this here area, and the entire enemy team moving all the way around here because there's no one in this here area. Which essentially we're just switching places. Now, these games are quite often determined about who gets to the enemy cap circle first. But I don't like the whole cap game. So, what I usually try and focus on is when it's safe for me to disband the whole flanking push. Now, the best thing... That was an unlucky bounce. The best thing you can do is try and force your team to be as aggressive as possible when you realize that this is what's going on. You need your team to push as quickly forward as the enemy team is pushing down the other flank. But it's not always possible, so in those kind of situations where the enemy team has reached your cap and your team has not even broken the flank, you need to realize when that flank is going to most likely be won in the future, and it's safe for you to go back without losing a lot of your friendly tanks. Or at the very least, if you're feeling confident enough that you can carry the game, when you're in a position that you can move back to the base, and maybe you lose all of your friends, but if you're confident enough in your own ability, you are judging that it's going to take them long enough that you can get back to the base, defend it, and get back to the flank and kill whatever is remaining, right? So, at this point, I've noticed that this is probably what's going to be happening, so I push forward as much as possible. Now, I'm in the Object 268, which is a gun that has a... well, it's got a very nice gun, and I surprised this T95, taking a big chunk out of his health, hoping to get a shot in on this Yak Tiger, but he appears to have either seen me or is merely doing what he should be doing. But of course, as you can see, our base is already lost. We've got a few tanks back there to help us defend, and we bounced the shot from the Yak Tiger, which is awesome. But we're in an awkward position because it doesn't really feel like we're certain that this flank is going to be winning. Now, we've noticed that this VK4502B is moving back towards our base. That's good, because that's maybe going to give us a little bit more, and I take a bad shot there. And I really would like to at least kill this T95 or aid in his destruction. And here goes the T54 doing what mediums do, being awesome, and flanking him. As always, flanking wins games. If it's you that's flanking, or if it's the enemy, or if it's you setting up a position where your enemy can't be flanked, it's most likely going to go well. Now, we've been lucky that the enemy team didn't decide to simply go and cap. If there had been 3 enemies in the cap circle, we would most likely have lost outright, because I was a bit slow with moving backwards. I should not have stayed there for the T95. But we've been lucky. There's only one tank capping, and I decide to try and take a shot at this guy, and he somehow becomes a ghost, and my shot goes right through him or something. I don't know. That was very weird. However, the enemy have made a grievous mistake in not trying to cap. They didn't realize this because they were feeling quite confident in their ability to win, right? But at this point, it's essentially a lost cause for them, because And this is really essential. Now that was a bad bounce. This is really essential. Because they've split up their team and we've now gone back to the back to defend. We've lost the Conqueror over there, but that's alright. We've all gone back to defend, so we're close up and together. We are going to be able to fight with the full force of our surviving tanks. While they have split up. So they are not going to... they can't really do that much. Since in this case, it's 1 against 4. Before it was 2 against 6 tanks. Also, at this point in the game, it's worth noting that artillery is not really that useful in this point in the game. Now, hear me out here. If you had 4 tanks left on the enemy on your team, right? And you had the choice of 2 of them being artillery and 2 of them being relatively weakly armored tank destroyers, right? Wouldn't you rather have had 2 heavy tanks instead of the 2 artilleries? I would. I know for certain that I would. So, at this point, the match is already over because the artilleries are not going to be able to do anything. We've got a few tanks moving up towards the artillery. Oh, he's not. He's going to be helping us in with the T-30. And I move forward here because I think that we have probably already won, and I'm probably right. There's the T-30. This T-54 needs to be careful, and I want to assist him as best as I can. So let's get a shot in on this tractor. Now I would really have preferred... what I was trying to go for there was trying to get to a place where I could shoot the T-30, so I could have at least taken out one of the tanks. However, it was not to be. So I'm going to be using this Leopard, this Leopard's wreck as cover. And this T-30 is going to make a fool out of me, because he is going to take a shot right there, which was bad for me. There we go. Now I'm at a one-shot kill, below a one-shot kill from anything that these guys can pull out, but as you can see, it's a win. Even though this GW Tiger P here thought it would be hilarious to kill me. So, let's move on to the post-game stats. Alright, now this was a first-class mastery badge. I got myself 68,695 credits gross, 4,530 experience at a 3x victory. I also earned myself a high caliber medal with 6,330 damage done and 5 kills. This is not something so uncommon in these kind of high alpha damage tanks, especially not a tank like the Object 268, since it really excels at this kind of peekaboo tactics, so that's not really something so out of the ordinary, right? I earned myself 22,507 credits with everything subtracted. And we can see here I blocked 1,240 damage. Now the big difference between the Object 268 and the Object 704 is that the Object 268 has much superior armor. While you can't really do so much side scraping with it, since it's this whole, what you say, this the gun is very centered and it's this piked nose again, where it's not really to your advantage to be sideways toward an enemy, or at least at an angle. You need to be directly towards them, right? However, it's a decent enough game, but that's beside the point, really. What I'm trying to show you here is that it's important to be able to know when you can leave the flank. You need to be able to tell that your team is going to be able to win the flank or delay the enemies who's there enough that it's not going to be an issue for you while you move back and defend the base. Now, as I've said before, you can't count on your team's performance. The only thing you can count on is yourself. So if you can do it, you need to go back and defend the base yourself. That's really your best choice. Now you can't always do that in a situation where you're in a slow tank or the enemy is rushing. In those kinds of situations you really have to rely on your team. If I was in a mouse here or in a T95, right, and I had lumbered all the way over to that flank, I would not be able to get back. So in those kinds of situations, the best thing you can do is still to push. However, in a fast tank, like the Object 268, which is actually quite nimble, the best thing you can do is try and put as much damage as quickly as possible into the enemy on your flank, while goading your friends to push forward. When you've seen that your friends are pushing, that's really your end goal, right? You want to break whatever stalemate might have arisen. You want to push, you want to be aggressive so that your friends are aggressive, and then when you've done as much damage as you deem necessary, you need to rush back and help defend the base. This will save you tons of games. Don't go for the enemy cap, because at that point it's just a crapshoot. Who gets into the cap circle first? Who gets most people in? No, you don't want that. You want to depend as much as possible on your own skill, and in this case your own skill is much better used going after the enemy cappers rather than trying to cap yourself. If you go in a cap, you're really not doing anything with your tank, while you could go back and you could help out your team. Now, I hope that this has been clear to you, and I hope you've learned something, and I hope I'll see you back in the future for more videos. Please remember to vote, comment and subscribe. It sure does help a lot. And I'll see you in the morning.